This is Wide Angle with Ashok Vyas.
The biggest miracle of Swami is the transformation that he brings about in people.
We say wide angle, there still is some limit, but the angle that comes from the divine takes us to the infinite. But in order to embrace the infinite in a way that makes sense for us, and also something connection with which helps us in making sense of all that is happening around us, and also in managing not only our affairs but business affairs, and how all this is done. When it is done with spiritual insight, that makes all the difference. Today we are fortunate that Satya Sai Center Flushing hosted a talk by Professor Anant Raman, who has come all the way from Puttaparthi. He's media coordinator of Satya Sai Central Trust, and he has also taught business management in several business schools, including one where he is currently also teaching, that is Swami's Business School. I have the distinct pleasure and honor of welcoming Professor Anant Raman for this conversation for the viewers of ITV. Namaskar. Let me begin by requesting you to share with us, when you were a student, probably that was the time when you got the opportunity of being in the presence of Satya Sai Baba for the first time?
Not when I was a student, when I was subsequently working as a professional person. I was working in Bangalore. That was the time when I had the opportunity to know about and to come in contact with Satya Sai Baba.
Coming into contact and then being a part of, call it, his presence, these are two different things for people who are, so to say, away from that intense orbit of his presence. In your case, share with us, when you are an adult, you are a professional, your intellectual perception of the world is already formed, and then too you are teaching people. So in what way you feel being in his presence brought about a different kind of perception about worldview?
For a long time, I was in his presence as a devotee. What impressed me most about Swami was basically four things. Number one, his concept that about the unity of all religions, first. And secondly, his concept that hands that help are holier than the lips that pray. And thirdly, his concept saying that devotion is fine, but at the same time, service to fellow man is very important. But for a long time, these were all basically concepts to me as a devotee. But at some point in time, when I decided, as far as my career was concerned, when I reached a certain point of my career, I basically felt I also need to contribute something back in this form to somebody, to Swami and his movement, because his whole concept of what he has created from almost from nothing was mind-boggling, was something which I was impressed. I said, I need that. So with that in view, I started teaching in Swami's colleges. At some point in time when I decided to do it whole time, I became a full-time professor at the university. And subsequently, when opportunities presented himself to be associated with his activities in another way, now as a media coordinator, helping the Central Trust in a communication exercise, I thought that's an opportunity that I must take on. So it grew over a period that way.
You have taught at several business schools, including some of the important institutions which are here in America. The reason I refer to it is because you look at the business from an intellectual point of view, and there are certain theories wherein you probably do not have any place of spiritual appreciation of people you are working with. So share with us, do you see any difference in the way you are approaching management in Swami's business school in Puttaparthi and some other well-known business institutions?
Absolutely. Like for instance, now if you take an example, business today, you find a lot of businesses suffering for basically the lack of values, lack of ethics. Business became a profession where what seemed to be more important was to increase shareholder value at all the time. So to increase the shareholder value, business went and did several things which probably is not correct, should not be done. You have had several cases, both in India and the United States, of businessmen performing in a manner which is not for the good of the society, performing in a manner which is completely selfish. I think all this is because the value system required for business is not there. Business must basically be looked upon as a trusteeship. A businessman is a trustee for a society. This concept becomes very clear when you combine business teaching, which Swami has also taught. Then it puts a completely new complexion to this whole business. So before I started looking at it as Swami's devotee, all these was concepts to me which I learned, concepts to me which I taught. But were they all internalized within me? Did I feel about it? Probably not. Now I feel the relevance of all of them today.
There is so much behind Professor Anant Raman, as the word Anant suggests, which of course talks about that where there is no end. But trying to sort of walk with him on the steps of the way his understanding grew by the grace of Baba, Swami, Bhagavan, whichever way you refer to him. Was there any distinct paradigm shift in your appreciation of the way you were connecting with students or the subject after you really felt that this human form that is in front of you is actually manifestation of the divinity?
Yeah, absolutely. Till then, ethics, values, good behavior, all these were concepts. But after interacting with Swami closely, we found that all these are not just concepts. All these are required in real life. All these are part of reality. All these are part of the things which the professional manager, which the student, which the teacher must feel intensely and do that. I think there was a disconnect before that. There was a disconnect between what we felt was right management and what actually was being taught as management. I would say after moving with Swami, reading Swami's teaching, I think the disconnect slowly, I wouldn't say it has completely vanished. I think the disconnect became weaker and weaker.
We want to be connected to that which helps us in becoming strong. And when you look at people who aspire for success, they have a lot of questions and doubts, and especially the kind of economic environment that we live in today. So first of all, share with us, in your view, how would you define success? And would you have a different definition of success if you look at it in terms of your economic growth or spiritual growth, or there is one definition of success which is applicable for one and all?
I would say I would today define success as any act or any action that you do or any performance that you do which creates the greatest good for the greatest number of people. I would say that is probably would be my definition of success today. And in creating the greatest good, how are the means? The means are as important as the ends. Are we following the correct means in order to achieve these ends? I think these are the two aspects that become more paramount and more real to me than it was 20 years ago.
Now, let's move further, taking scenario of a student who has a lot of debt, education loan here, and he has a gloomy picture of the economy, so there is uncertainty about getting an employment. So his mind is most of the time worried about how am I going to get settled in my life. And then I connect it with the way Satya Sai Baba talked about love in action. So people think that once I'm settled, then only I'll think about love. So let's move with success towards your understanding of love.
Basically, as far as Satya Sai Baba is concerned, he hit at the root of the problem by providing three basic requirements for people, which he felt was a basic need of the people. People have a fundamental right for this: education, health, and water. Education provided by Satya Sai institutions are completely free of cost to the students. So students do not have this burden of this big loan upon them, which they necessarily need to return. And because they want to return, they could pick up any job when they graduate out. There is no compulsion for them to do that. So they can choose their career, they can choose their jobs wisely to do that. When Swami built all these hospitals, schools, etc., not merely because he felt building one big hospital, one big college, etc., is something which would change the world. No, it wouldn't. But he basically did that because of the basic idea that all these should be provided free to people: health, education, and water. And he did that. And how did he do that? Because basically, and how did people work in his water project? How did people work in his university, etc., etc.? Because they do that mainly because when you deal with Swami, what you see most before you is the love and compassion. That love and compassion is so catching that you become part of it. From somewhere in Swami's heart, an ocean of love seems to pour forth. Under this, every doubt, every despair, every confusion seems to melt away. And when you are part of it, the confusion and doubt that you have also melts away. And you believe that love is probably one of the most basic human qualities that is required. In fact, the only quality that is required. And this is the biggest impact that Swami has had on his devotees and particularly on me.
This is Wide Angle with Ashok Vyas.
His basic concept of, because when people ask Swami, are you God? His answer was, I am God, but so are you. But the difference is, I realize I am divine, you don't realize that you are divine. So he has basically said that there is divinity in each one of us. And whatever divinity is in each one of us needs to be connected. And the only thing that can make a connection between me, you, and everybody else, and connect all these divine forces together, is the love I have for you and the love you have for me, and this love must be directly flowing. And once you have this love, everything else becomes secondary. And he demonstrated it by his love. He loved his devotees, he loved his enemies, he loved his students, he loved everybody. And in this whole concept and ocean of love, everything else melted away, everything was created. Water project came because of his love for the villagers, that they must be provided with water. Hospital came because of the love he felt for the people, saying they must be provided basic medical facilities. And once you have this love, and service becomes an element of this love, and everything becomes secondary to that.
Is there any way which would help us in exactly understanding what is it that I should quantifiably consider my potential, or there is nothing like limits to human potential applicable for everybody?
Swami himself has set this example. You find he has the basic capacity to elevate every single human being to a height much bigger than what he is capable of. Today, Swami's institutions are all completely being run by people whom he has chosen and the students he has taken. Swami's organization, for example, has about 600,000 volunteers working all over the world. And these volunteers are people who could be in very senior position. They could be heads of corporations, they could be government officers, etc. But you would find in some of these hospitals and places, service organizations, you would find them cleaning a leper's wound, watching us clearing a slum. In Prashant Nilayam itself, you come, there are Sevadal volunteers. Somebody could come and to repair the toilet in your room as part of a Sevadal volunteer. This volunteer could be the chief engineer of an electricity board. He does it. Does he do it because of compulsive need for service? Or does he do it because he wants something out of that? Or does he do it because of his love? At least he starts doing it that way. And then the whole thing flows and develops.
The whole thing flows and develops, and the way it developed, the idea of helping those who need water. And you were chosen by Satya Sai Baba for presenting the paper related to water project in Japan and Mexico. Share with us a little bit of that experience. Probably you interacted with him also about that paper or about the vision. So both sides. Making sure that you are conveying what he wants you to convey. Was that happening just internally, or there was some communication with him? Plus, how was the experience of presenting it in Japan and Mexico?
For instance, when I presented the water project in Japan, they basically expected each one of us to make a presentation talking about the water project from purely an economic angle of what did it say, why was it done, was the project replicable, was the project financially sustainable. So they were basically interested in replicability and sustainability of a project, like what all world government projects would be. But when I made a presentation, I said, I'm not going to make a project, I'm not going to make a presentation. All I'm going to tell you is I'm going to tell you a story. Not just a story, I'm going to tell you a love story. A love story is how a compassion for a person, for his fellow being, created this massive water project which ultimately became a reality. And this came up not because somebody calculated and found this sustainable and replicable, but because of the compassion he had for people, and how because of this compassion he was able to move people, he was able to move teams, how people worked together, how villagers readily came forward to allow pipes to be laid in their own areas. There were examples of when these water pipes were being laid in certain tribal areas in Andhra Pradesh. People, some of the natives there who were Naxalites, who normally rob people, etc., came back and offered help, because the moment they found that this was being done to help people, they felt they must also help. So we saw practical demonstration of this love that was happening. So when I gave these stories in the United Nations, it was completely different. They were not used to these kind of stories. So I said, I'm not going to talk about replicability. I'm going to talk about how love created all this. So it put a completely different emphasis to the way people looked at the whole project.
When you talk about it as a love story, it makes much more profound impact, and it generates more interest also. And talking about interest in management from Western mindset, as well as looking at it from the light of ancient wisdom, which we would call Bharatiya Medha, you have been teaching management for so many years, and you have been so closely connected with Satya Sai Baba. So I guess there must have been occasions when you probably questioned, or you probably looked at the overlapping area between the way Western mindset and some management theories are there which are being taught. And if it was some rishi who was talking about these management principles, probably his take would be slightly different. Something on those lines?
I was for far longer a Western manager than one who taught management under Satya Sai Baba's school right now. Therefore, honestly, I must say, as far as my mind is concerned, even though there are some conflicts between what Western management thinks is the right way to manage and what our Eastern philosophy basically thinks is the right way to manage. I cannot say I'm completely free of these conflicts in my own mind. There are these conflicts. But basically, as long as you look at it from the point of view of ensuring that a manager must act in such a way that his action increases value to the corporation, number one. And this value is something which must be available for all stakeholders, number two. Number three, to achieve this value, means are perhaps as important as the ends. I think if you keep these three basic principles right, you find it's possible to integrate and bring a connection between management, which in what a rishi would have been as a manager, and what Western managers would have been. Exactly, it is these concepts which is today giving rise to concepts like corporate social responsibility. But the point is, a lot of people who practice corporate social responsibility do it because it's a slogan, it's a cliche. But if they all look at it as something which is basically essential to human endeavor, that they have a responsibility towards the society, I think the whole thing would be very much different.
Somehow there are so many things interconnected, probably because everything is connected in some way. So what we are talking also takes us to Marxist philosophy. Somewhere we would say that you would be concerned about the value addition or about the profit. And sometimes profit and value or human value may be in conflict with a particular corporation. So from that point of view, how would you resolve these conflicts if you are addressing a seminar of some corporate executives and they come up with such questions?
I think profit is a part of the value. If you look at value, which is more broad-based than the word profit, profit accrues to an individual or shareholders, while value accrues to all the stakeholders connected with that project. If you keep that concept very clear, you will find there is nothing objectionable, nothing evil about profit at all. There is nothing wrong in profit. Profit motive is something which basically encourages people, directs people to work better. But if you consider profit as part of the value that you need to create, probably we can integrate the two concepts more clearly.
When you are also taking the responsibility of being media coordinator for Satya Sai Central Trust, you are being considerate to the kind of questions which are born on the playing field of doubts.
My role as a media coordinator basically started because after Swami passed away, after he left his physical form, there were concerns expressed in several media, many imaginary, many exaggerated, perhaps some of them were real, for which response was necessary. There are two kinds of media. One, there is a responsible media. We hope ITV is definitely one of them. And there are also a lot of irresponsible media who appear to separate the wheat from the chaff and then go and print the chaff. So we were also partly subjected to vilification by this kind of a media. Our initial reaction was, let's keep quiet, let's not bother about them, because that was basically Swami's philosophy. He basically, while Swami was physically present, we never bothered about media relations, we never bothered about communications. But subsequently, we felt this communication was necessary, because we are now living in a completely different world, where we are probably one charitable trust among many. Therefore, there is the rest of the world. From this world, we draw resources, both of people and of money, etc., etc. When there is concern, it is necessary that we need to share, be transparent. So we immediately felt transparency is very important. We need to be open, we need to communicate, we need to tell them what was happening. So in our experience, we found as long as we are transparent and open, I think the media then behaves with you more honorably than before. For example, the Trust published an annual report for the first time last year, talking about the expenditure income of this, which the Trust had never done before, which I think very few trusts have come. Love all, serve all is the basic motto with which the entire Sai organization today works. As long as we are able to bring the simple truth into actual practice, I believe we would be happier and we would be able to serve society far better.
Wonderful. My guest today, Professor Anantharamani, his message, love all, serve all. Hear it again and try to see in what way you can practice it. And also observe, practicing it brings about some sort of new door of abundance to flow in your life. The simple thing is love all and serve all. And that's what Professor Anantharamani, by the grace of Satya Sai Baba, is doing. He is practicing it. He has taught at several business schools, and presently he is also media coordinator of Sri Satya Sai Central Trust. It was great being with you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. This is Ashok Vyas thanking Professor Anantharamani as well as all of you for being with us. Namaskar. This is Wide Angle with Ashok Vyas.
The biggest miracle of Swami is the transformation that he brings about in people.